And for Off the Block, I'm Vinny Lopes, and we are now joined by the Commissioner of the SIAC, Greg Moore, as there's been big news in the conference today as they have started college men's volleyball with 6 new teams forming programs that will begin in 2021. And Commissioner Moore, I have to ask you, first and foremost, how does it feel to now be a men's volleyball conference along with all the other sports you guys host?
It feels good, but this is just a first step in a long process, and our expectation is that come 2021 we'll be playing men's volleyball.
Now I want to ask, in terms of this, obviously you were able to get a grant to help get this jump started, but can you take us through that process of when was it first a thought or discussion that the SIAC could be a men's volleyball conference?
Well, I got a chance to meet Wade Gerard, who's the CEO of the First Point Volleyball Foundation, and we had a conversation about his organization and about the sport, which I didn't know much about. But when I was able to do a little more due diligence and learn more about the sport and actually watch some games in person, I got hooked pretty quickly. And then, more importantly, when I saw and discovered how popular the sport was around the globe, I saw this as an opportunity to advance the objectives of our school presidents to recruit more students from overseas, particularly in those areas of the world where volleyball is very popular. So it was the right move at the right time, and it falls squarely within our presidential strategies regarding international student recruitment as well.
Yeah, and I do want to ask you, because you're kind of new to the sport, first getting to see it. What was some of the reaction from some of the school presidents or school athletic directors when you pitched the idea of starting men's volleyball?
Well, I think they all kind of got it pretty quickly. Wade was able to meet in Indianapolis at the January 2019 NCAA convention, and they kind of got it. The only hesitancy that some institutions might have had was, relating to, Title IX. But at some point, we're starting with 6, member institutions, but we hope that, down the line, more than a few of them see the benefits of it, and they begin to add that sport as a sponsor sport as well.
Yeah. Now, obviously, when you're building something from scratch, it takes time to build it. But do you feel that this conference, maybe not right away in 2021, but down the road is going to be competing for a national championship?
Well, that's the goal. I think we exist in a climate where there's a lot more volleyball talent at the boys' high school level than there are opportunities to play in college. So, I think that, being a first mover in many respects, at least, on the HBCU landscape, I think gives us certain competitive advantages and allows us to offer our prospective student athletes experiences that I'm confident will, attract not just great boys volleyball players in the United States, but also, exceptional talented players, in the Caribbean, South America, and also Sub-Saharan Africa as well.
Well, and I do want to ask you, full transparency here, I'm white, a lot of the volleyball community is white, so we know of HBCU schools, but, may not know too much about them. So I want to ask you, what is it about HBCU schools that kind of make them so special and so unique? What are some of those traits that they bring?
Boy, we can talk about that for a long, long while. Well, one thing is important to keep in mind is that, historically black colleges and universities, they enroll 20% of the African-American high school graduates in the country every year, but we graduate 60% of them. That's a very important statistic to keep in mind. We enroll 20% of all African-American high school graduates, but we graduate 60% of African-American graduates. So, we're doing something to achieve these kind of graduation outcomes that a lot of institutions aren't doing. We're also doing a great job in providing opportunities to a lot of kids who otherwise would not have them. A significant portion of our kids are first-generation college students, and it takes an enormous amount of energy and work and commitment to be the first in your family to graduate from college. And the role that our schools play in making that happen on a daily basis is, we have no peers in that regard. And that's something that's very significant because when a kid graduates from college and they're the first kid in their family to do so, it changes the trajectory of that family's life. So, in my view, when you look at, the opportunities that we're providing young people, when you look at where our schools are located in the southeastern United States, where some of these communities have some economic challenges, so we are, having a $10 billion economic impact in these communities. When you look at the experience, the graduates, what we're doing, the kids that we're producing, I just think that these are very special places for young people to not just get education, but also to become, in some respects, self-actualized, to go to a place, go to a campus where they're nurtured, where the president knows them, has a first-name basis with them, the professors know them by their first name, and they're able to grow without some of the challenges that, sometimes kids have to deal with in other environments.
Right. And I want to ask you, for the conference, the SIAC, this is probably the first time some people in the volleyball community have heard about your conference. What do you feel is the one or two things you want the volleyball community to know about your conference?
Well, number one, we have very loyal alumni. Our fans are quite passionate about their schools. Just by way of example, in football, we've led Division II in football attendance 16 years in a row. When you go to a SIAC, HBCU homecoming, it's standing room only. You have 28,000 people at Tuskegee homecoming, 25,000 at Morehouse, 20,000 at Clark Atlanta homecoming. Kentucky State, Central State, these are huge events where people come from near and far, planes, trains, automobiles, to come back to these schools and reconnect with these institutions. So the emotional connections that our alumni and their students have with these institutions is really without peer. Secondly, I would say that, the academic pedigree of our institutions, U.S. News ranks the top 80 historically black college universities. We have a third of the top 15 in terms of, Clark Atlanta and Tuskegee and Morehouse College. And so we also have some of the best Thurgood Marshall institutions as well in terms of Kentucky State, Albany State, Fort Valley, Central State University. So, just the quality of the education that you get is really, really superior. And I know that because when I talk to our corporate partners such as Nike and Toyota and ESPN and the like, they're very much interested in pursuing opportunities for internships for our kids because they realize that these kids, when they do employ these kids, they do great work at these corporations.
All right. And final question, Commissioner, and I'll let you go on this now. I have a question about the NCAA tournament. Typically, when there's a new conference that forms, it's kind of a 2-year or new conference adds a sport, it's usually a 2-year waiting period for that conference before they can get an AQ bid. Has there been talk at all possibly you guys getting a waiver to get that AQ starting in 2021, or are we looking more at your first AQ happening in 2023?
We haven't yet had those conversations yet. So at some point, I'll sit down with stakeholders at the NCAA, perhaps with some support from USA Volleyball, First Point Volleyball Foundation, perhaps John Farrell, and just talk about the best way to go about, exploring those options. But we've yet to have those discussions.